Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Glad to have you joining us today. My guest for today is Wanda Garstad Buckleitner. She is the owner and operator of Walking Soul Wisdom. She is a holistic health practitioner and an intuitive psychic medium. Wanda grew up in the country, rooted in nature. She has a deep connection to the earth, the animals, and spirit. Her psychic abilities revealed themselves in childhood, seeing spirit in many different forms from the time that she can remember. Her very first impactful memory was when she was 5 years of age. This awareness grew stronger as time went on, and in the year 2000, Wanda began working with her abilities through mediumship and energy medicine. In 2004, Wanda began her journey into SAFE, which is closely related to shamanism, with a mentor and teacher indigenous to her personal European Norse traditions. As a therapist, practitioner, and teacher, Wanda continues to work and practice with many amazing and gifted teachers. She has been providing healing consultations and therapies for humans and animals for over 16 years as a psychic medium, a Reiki master teacher, a systemic constellation therapist, body talk systems therapist, safe shamanic life coach practitioner, and as a death soul doula. Always thirsty for knowledge, Wanda enjoys learning and considers herself a student of life and spirit, recognizing that her clients are also teachers and feeling honored to contribute to her clients' chosen directions. Wanda respects the diversity of faith and science and alchemy in each individual's life and death path, with the intent to empower others in their personal walk with life and death. Wanda shares tools, techniques, ceremonies, and healing, which brings closure and direction into the lives of those who work with her. Wanda will be talking with us today about her work as a systemic constellation therapist and how we can all benefit from this effective and multidimensional work. She will also be speaking about her work as a death doula and how this modality also feeds her passion as a death soul doula. So I thank you, Wanda, for joining us today. I love your work as a systemic constellation therapist, having experienced it firsthand. And I would love to share it with everybody else who is viewing today, to know what of a healing modality that is so powerful and effective. So, Wanda, I'd like you to teach us, to explain what the systemic constellation therapy is about.
Thank you, Becky. It's a real pleasure to be here. And thank you for inviting me and to speak about something that I so very much love and am passionate about. Uh, Systemic constellation therapy is uh, a process and a modality that speaks to every individual as well as family, community, and so on and so forth. This healing modality is about heart, it's about forgiveness. And systemic constellations include family, organizational constellations, structural nature constellations. This work emerged out of psychotherapy. So, some of the founders of that being um, Bert Hellinger. Virginia Satir actually brought in the very first form of this, and it was called family structure as a therapy. And then Bert Hellinger, later on in his career and life, um, brought it in with an awareness of energy as well as a awareness of a family structure or from a strictly therapeutic point of view. And what that brought was an awareness and an availability to bring the therapy into a wider scope, so that systemic constellation was and is a better way to possibly explain the work rather than family structure or sculpture. Family sculpture works with simply the dynamics of a family system, whereas constellation therapy opens the arena for all senses and sources of systemic work to be done. So it can be done on a family system still, and very much, and often anything is the core of that. But it can also be done with a body. It can be done with nature. It can be done with uh, a community. It can be done with a city, a country, right from a cellular structure as small as a cell to as large as the universe. Anything that holds a structure, a containment, can be worked with inside of systemic constellation therapy. This is part of what I love about the work, because the energetics is just wide open. There's no box to this work, and that's part of what I love about it. This work approaches what is out of balance inside of a family, a cell, a community, a country, nature, whatever it is, and approaches it from a place of understanding that what is out of balance, and and connects, and understands that we actually come into this world whole, and then things change. And so when how do I put this? When we come into the world, we come in as these beautiful psychic little beings, and we don't have the mental structure, the mental capacity to do our world. So what we end up doing is we end up using our senses, all of our senses, to see where we fit in this world. One of Bert Hellinger's first order of love, as he calls it, is that we need to belong. We need to belong into a system. And so with systemic constellation therapy, what we know is that we will, as these little psychic beings, sense the environment around us, sense our lineage, sense our parents, and take on both blessings and burdens.
Yeah.
From our lineage, from our parents, and we'll do that so that we do belong. We'll take on a job, you know, and by taking on that job, we then have security in that system. If you look at wolf or dog packs or even herd animals, I mean, we are still an animal. On this planet, we are animals. Our ego likes to think that we're separate of our brothers and sisters, but we're really not. And so that's where we actually see that connection is that if we don't belong into a family system or into a structured system, a pack, a herd, whatever it looks like, then we're not needed. We could be left. But if we have a job, if we have a place where we know we belong and we have a purpose, then we feel safer in that environment. So we'll take on blessings and burdens from our parents, and they have taken blessings and burdens from theirs, and so on and so forth. So systemic constellation therapy work approaches what is out of balance from a knowledge that we are all connected, and that what is out of alignment will continually come forward until it is brought into balance again and again and again. Finding release, resolution, integration, and empowerment in a field that supports us all is the work of systemic constellation therapy. And how that shows up is very different in every session. It's one of the things that I do so much love about the work is that I never know what we're going to meet, and none of us do. And so we're truly stepping into the mystery of life and of death, and uh, and that's what sparks me and makes me passionate is that it works both my worlds of being a death doula and also the systemic therapy and the shamanic and energetic realm all combined.
So with the systemic, is it done with individual sessions or in group workshops?
So it can be both. We can function from a place inside this therapy from a group situation where there is a group of us, and we each have our moment in what we call the hot seat. and being a client is where we have the opportunity to work with an intention of our own. And then the group is also a working part of your session, because the group is also called representatives, and they come in to assist with your intention. The difference between a client and a representative is that the client gets to sit back and watch the process of their intent of resolution come to life before them, as the representatives come in to embody the energies that are relevant to the client's intent.
And I noticed that when as a representative, that when you stepped up to be a representative and you go into the circle, there's that worry of being able to help the client to meet their intention. And by stepping out of our ego, by stepping out of my ego and just allowing the energy of whoever it was that I was representing in that family lineage, it be the mother, father, brothers, sisters, grandparents, or maybe even another energy. It was interesting what came out, what came out of my mouth, how my body ended up feeling, the emotions that I was feeling, none of which was mine, and it had to do with what that particular person, what they felt and how they thought. And yes, it was very powerful. And but it was, in a way, it was letting go of control.
Yes. As one of the gifts about doing this work is recognizing that uh, we all have free will. We all have uh, a sense of mind and body and spirit. And inside of that free will, we choose, and we can choose whatever we like.
Mm-hmm.
And inside of this work, if we choose to be of service, it allows us to experience something outside of us, and yet that resonates to us and with us, because we're all connected. And yet this, whatever it is you're choosing to be of service of to represent doesn't overtake you, this isn't mediumship, this isn't trancing, this isn't, all that stuff. This is a recognition and an acceptance to allow the essence or resonance or uh, knowledge of someone else relative to the client to be able to communicate inside of that space.
Yes, being a vessel.
Without taking over. Yeah. Yeah. So the beauty of surrendering is part of the magic of systemic constellation therapy, for sure.
And another thing I found very interesting was, even if I was not in the circle as a representative of somebody that's helping with the intention, and I was just sitting in the outer circle, I myself received healing sometimes, because there were uh, situations, issues that we all in some respects share in our lives, that may be in different forms and in different levels of intensity, but that we have there. And it's what I find very beautiful is that we can as well, those of us in the outer circle, receive healing along with the client on some level.
Absolutely. That's the gift of the work, is that anybody present, whether they're actually inside what we call the knowing fields, and that session for that client still receives the healing because we are all connected. And again, another gift of this work is that when you attend this, you actually really fully experience that connection that we've been taught that we aren't, that we're all individual. And in fact, we are all individual inside of a collective.
Yes.
And that is very clear inside of the systemic work. And it is beautiful. Yes, I can relate to that very much, to sitting on the outside of the even the personal work that I did before and when I'm not teaching and facilitating. Um, it resonates through your whole body. It just sings, and there's great healing that happens just by your presence.
It is. It's in a, when you leave at the end of the weekend, it is just so there's a sense of connection with the people that you were in the workshop with. It's like when you say goodbye at the end of the weekend, you feel in a way that you have made a friend, or had this connection with somebody who you may not see ever again, but there is that now. It's like you are connected to somebody else in the world, and it is a beautiful feeling. Yes. Like we looked
Yes.
into each other's souls. We allowed ourselves to be vulnerable and allowed ourselves to be seen in our vulnerability, and accepted for our vulnerability. It's like, it's beautiful. Yeah. Yes.
Yes, to allow ourselves to just be authentic and and open. And that's why this is known as heart work. It is heart work, it is soul work. And it's beautiful. It even inside of that can work inside of business constellations as well. What I what I'd like to say about what you spoke of too is that when we really open ourselves up, and really it's not about bearing everything, it is just simply about being present, then we get these great gifts of really seeing each other and accepting ourselves and accepting those around us. And the connections, I always find it funny and beautiful that, when a group like this comes together, I usually have at least two or three that are new to the work and are usually really quite nervous about doing group work. I hear quite often, "Oh, I don't do group work. It, it's my business. I don't want anybody else to know." But like you said, by the end of the weekend, they have a completely different perspective of being in a group, and they uh, have experienced a sense of support and connection that they really haven't ever experienced before. Yeah.
It gives, it in a way it allows or it expands our understanding of how connected we really are, and that everybody goes through similar experiences in our lives, some in a lesser degree, some in a more impactful. And but knowing that we aren't the only ones, suffering through an issue, it in a way it's very comforting to know that we're not alone.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And to know that when one of us heals, that we all heal.
Yes.
you know, to have that recognition as well, and to support that, and to recognize just how much of a warrior you are when you step into your own healing, and what a gift you are when you step into your own healing, because it's not only healing you, it's healing many. Inside of some traditions, it's known that when you heal self, you heal 7 generations past and 7 generations forward. What I know about this work is it goes way beyond that, and it is a great gift
It is.
to experience.
It is. It is a beautiful gift to give to yourself as well as to others. Yes.
Yes.
So, Wanda, can you give maybe an example of what somebody could expect if they came to your workshop?
Sure. So, okay, let's file it in here. There's a lot. So, um, so here's a good example. We'll work with an example of someone who is working inside of a family system, for instance.
Mhm.
Uh, Inside of this family system, I'll just kind of do a generalization, but um, inside of this family system, there was a young boy who was experiencing suicidal thoughts.
Yep.
He had turned 18, and upon his 18th birthday, he uh, became suicidal. And his family was distraught, didn't know what to do. And uh, inside of that situation, you can feel so useless. And at 18, then he becomes an adult. So then the parents felt even more useless, because the system no longer supported them to support their son.
Yep.
And so what ended up happening was they went to a constellation weekend, a workshop. And what was discovered was that there was a wound from a 3 generations past, from a child, or sorry, a great great grandfather, third generation great 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 grandfather, who was in war. And inside the systemic constellation therapy, what was found was that that great grandfather had experienced a very traumatic experience of losing his best friend, his best like a brother to him, and his head was blown off in front of him inside of a dugout, and he was not able to grieve that death. That death sat in his system, and he was not able to let it go. When he actually survived the war, and when he came out of the war, he started to drink and work, and that's how he functioned. But he never got to grieve that death, and till his last breath, his belief system, his story that he told inside of his head, and what his thoughts were consistently was, it should have been me. So with that death wish, how did it show up inside the family system without it being healed? It showed up by his son committing suicide, and his son after him, and his son after him. And throughout the line and lineage of that family, there became an issue with suicidal thoughts and suicide inside of at least one male of that family system. And when it got to this gentleman, it was able to be healed. And through this work, the discovery, the availability to allow that harm, that trauma to be healed at the source of the issue, because that's the ticket with systemic constellation therapy, is that we find the source of the issue. That program, that pattern, that entanglement no longer sits in that family system now. And now that young man is, quite a few years older and is doing very well.
That's beautiful.
So a complete shift.
So the great grandfather was able to grieve,
Yes.
which is,
Yes. Inside. Yeah. Sorry about that.
No, I go ahead. So you're
Okay.
saying.
So that's what we do with systemic work, is that we find the source of the issue, whether it's a physical issue, a mental issue, a pattern, a grief, a loss, addiction, phobias. We can go past the result of what is happening and go into the source and heal the source where it's at, and then release that entanglement. We can also do that in past life work.
Past life work. So please explain that.
So in past life work, what we do is inside that knowing field, which is what Bert Hellinger spoke about and acknowledged. He acknowledged that because he worked with the Zulus, by the way. I'll just kind of backtrack a little bit here. Bert Hellinger worked with the Zulus, and what they showed him was this form of systemic constellation therapy, how they worked with their lineage, their dead and their alive, to heal those wounds. And he was able to bring this together inside of this form. And how he and what he called it was the circle, the circle that the Zulu created to do this work. What he created to do this work is called the knowing field, and it's like a hunk of the universe, in between us, and there's no time there, and there's no death there. There's just shift and change and dimensions. And so with past life work, when we step inside of that knowing field, we have the ability to call upon the source of whatever is happening with the individual.
Mm-hmm.
If it's in relation to a past life, it will show up as such. And then we have the ability to go into that lifetime and heal whatever is resonating and entangled in this current lifetime.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And in that way, we are also being able to heal karma
Correct.
then, and so that is one less thing that we have that we would possibly carry forward into the next life, and we could, by
Correct.
clearing enough of this, be able to move into dharma.
Correct. Yes. This has also been called a way to do karmic yoga, systemic constellation therapy, karmic yoga. Yes.
So
Yes. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, so if you, because you mentioned individual as well as group, so in group you have done it in different, you've gone around like you've done it down in Lethbridge, is it, in Medicine Hat?
Yeah.
And then I know that somebody flew you out to BC, and you did a workshop out there.
Yep.
Um,
Numerous times actually. Yep.
so if there is somebody even, or a group that was interested, or a business that was interested in having you come in and help to um, clear up misunderstandings and issues within their organization, because it can help to heal um, lineages, as in um, organizational hierarchy. Does that help for that? Like, is it what it would help with that?
Yes, absolutely. If so, I'll give you an example of a business constellation. I actually had someone come to me who was a owner of a multi million dollar company, and he was really having an issue with theft and sort of this dysfunction in his company, and he had over 30 departments, and and he knew that there was thievery happening. He knew that there was something going on and it wasn't right, and he couldn't find it. And he came to me, and we did a constellation uh, that allowed us to see through his intention where the imbalance was, and
Mhm.
where the miscommunication was happening, and where the thief was. And we actually got it right down to the department and the person.
Wow.
And inside of that, we also then were able to allow those departments
Mhm.
to talk to each other inside of that knowing field, to come into balance, to become into right relationship with each other, so that when it all comes to his everyday work, there was a dialogue, there was already a reconciliation inside the energy of the company. And what he found was amazing was that what was happening inside of his company was happening inside of his family system as well. Now, I wasn't surprised by that, but he was.
Yeah.
And so there was this great gift for him that he could now see all aspects of that. And it took about a year for everything to kind of kaplunk,
Yeah.
back into that place of right relationship with each other.
Mhm.
And he is now doing really, really well. And it also resonated inside of his family system.
That's beautiful. So we have a
Yeah.
question saying, with what is going on today, are you getting more people coming to you for help?
Oh, yes. Yes. I mean, we can actually do a constellation on COVID-19. We can do that work. We can work with it from a perspective of, you know, what is our relationship to it?
Mhm.
How can we come into right relationship with the source of this issue? And what's underneath it. And if we find out what's underneath it, if we find out the source of it, then this doesn't need to show up like this anymore for us in the world.
So Amika's wondering, do you see families in groups or as individuals?
Both, actually. Yep. And what the other way that I work this is that it can be done as individuals, and even with the death doula work, it doesn't need to be in a structured environment. I can do this work with someone in who is bedridden and who just really wants to shift or create a different way of being with their family, or heal an event or a situation or something inside themselves that they don't know how to do it any other way, and they want to do it before they go. And so it can be done with children. For instance, I have little animals, you know, and we do the work with little animals, and those little animals can represent mom and dad and grandma and grandpa, or their dog or their cat, or, you know, whatever it is that they are needing to feel connected to, that they're not able to in that time. And that can also happen with adults, and we just do it differently. Unless they want the animals, I'm good with it. But they can also use paper and or stones. I also use stones to use as representatives of energetics to find the relationship and bring it back into balance.
So how does the systemic constellation work tie into your work as a death soul doula or as a death doula?
Well, great question, because as I just spoke, the ability to be able to bring this work to someone who is bedridden, for instance, who is desperate to clean something up, heal something inside of themselves, and doesn't have the opportunity to or the energy, or, you know, to be able to do it in a workshop situation.
Yeah.
Um, is a beautiful way to heal. I mean, I think it was Sarah Kerr, and I think it was someone else as well that said, you know, even if there's no cure, there's healing. And so, with someone who is facing death, to be able to clean things up is pretty important to many
Yeah.
of us. And the other aspect is that when we're in a group, we see and feel and know that there's no death inside of that knowing field. There's a shift, there's a
Mhm.
change, there's different realms to work with, different awarenesses, perceptions, um, uh, but the connections are still there. And so that also brings a great piece of relief to someone who has perhaps maybe a different belief system about it, that they didn't realize, or or validates
Mhm.
a belief system for someone that wants or needs that validation.
So, the effects of being for the death doula or in the systemic, are the effects immediate or can they be immediate or do they take time, like with that gentleman in the business?
Um, what I would say is, inside of a family system and inside of a larger system, if you're working with community family, um, then what I can say is give it about a year to fully uh, flourish,
Hmm.
because we're working with free will. We're working with uh, process. We're working with allowance and letting things move as appropriate for us and for a collective. So on a personal basis, it happens immediately, and then it also grows. Just like we grow, our healing grows. Just like we can get worse, we can get better, and we keep getting better, we can keep getting worse, one or the other.
Yeah.
and and so that's also the beauty of this work. If we're dealing with illnesses, people often feel, a difference right away. And that's beautiful all by itself.
So who benefits? Like what idea of like what people come to you with, or what they're dealing with? Um, is there some that would benefit more than others?
uh no, actually, I think anybody benefits one way or the other, if they are there to heal for themselves,
Mhm.
or even if they're unsure what that looks like. But just by their presence, just by what we say and call dreaming ourselves in, to a place or a situation or an event or a workshop, then there's oftentimes a bigger or a uh, resonance happening already that you might be aware of or not aware of. What I can say is this benefits everyone, because you might feel that it might not resonate through you, but it absolutely, very likely will resonate through your family system.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then how can
In one
people
way or
reach
the
you?
other.
How can people reach you?
Ah, so I can be reached through my website. The website is www.walkingsoulwisdom.com. And that spot, you can access all sorts of ways to contact me in other ways: phone number, email, uh, yeah, any which way but loose nowadays with Facebook and iMessaging and Twitter and Instagram, and my goodness. So, yes, the website is a great way to connect, and that gives you all sorts of options to contact me.
So you have, um, I know with you were going to have a workshop in Calgary in May, and you had to postpone it because of COVID. So when are you planning to hold it instead? When is the next upcoming workshop here in Calgary?
So the website will be updated here shortly. I rescheduled it for July 11th, 12th, and 13th. It was the
Okay.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday,
Hmm.
Friday evening, Saturday, Sunday. Um, we're going to have a look at that and just see where it goes. What I want people to know is that it's not ever canceled, it's just going to be rescheduled. And we'll just care for what that looks like
Hmm.
as time progresses. If we need to shift it another month or two, then we'll do so to care for what needs to be cared for as individuals, and as this being group work, we need to care for that as well. So yeah, at this point it's been rescheduled for that date. I will have everything up on the website here next week. I'm also going to be putting on some online workshops, one of them being about the death doula work and something called Stepping into the Mystery. And
Okay.
stepping into the mystery is about looking at our belief systems around death and finding our own relationship with death.
Powerful. That would be, I think for most people that would be a very intense workshop, because becoming comfortable with our own death is uh, that is, I think, an issue that most people definitely have problems with. Like, that when you're born, when you're born that one day you're going to die, but you don't really want to face that or think about it or, yeah, acknowledge it. So,
Yes, absolutely. I think it was one comedian somewhere out there that said, uh, "I'm not scared to die. I just don't want to be there when it happens."
yeah, yeah.
So, so, the idea of conscious death is quite scary to people, and this is part of the reason why we have these issues, in my opinion. And why the scarcity mentality and the fear is so rampant out in the world is because we don't have this relationship with change or death or
Mhm.
birth in the way that we used to in traditional ways. Um, we just don't have that awareness anymore, and it's important. It
Mhm.
is so important that we find relationship with life and that we find relationship with death, and often how we live is how
Yeah.
we die.
And that's part I feel is the beauty of what that workshop, that the mysteries workshop that you have for people would be, then it's like empowering us to live a more aware life, to be aware of our actions, of our words, of our impact on a moment by moment basis, not just a daily basis, but on a moment by moment basis, how we can bring joy or happiness or love to somebody or to a situation to make it more hopeful or positive. And if we go with that knowledge of, yes, one day we will pass on, but what kind of legacy do we leave when that happens, is, I think,
Yes.
I feel is really important for us to think about it and to bring that into our consciousness.
Agreed, definitely. And it's one of the reasons why that's my passion, to bring this awareness to anyone who wants to listen and anyone who wants to inquire, because it's so important. And it's not about creating a belief system that's mine. It's about asking questions of self. It's about bringing those questions to each individual and
Mhm,
allowing them to find their own answers,
mhm,
and also inquiring about the belief systems that we have and where are they coming from, and do they serve us. Some of these belief systems are social. Some of them are family
mhm,
belief systems that don't serve anymore. Some of them are even, when we're dealing with illnesses, hospital belief systems, doctor, medical system belief systems that do not serve us as individuals, and some do. And just where is that, and how does that work for us, and
mhm,
what do we want that to look like? What do we want our death to look like? Where do we want to be? How do we want to feel? If we're living our lives in fear and anxiety and anger and frustration, then that's likely how we'll die. And do we want that?
yeah,
And are
yeah,
we handing our power over to belief systems that don't serve us?
mhm.
And what better to leave as a legacy than to have an empowered life and have an empowered death?
Yes, yes. So with the systemic, would you be able to help them, um, if they say live in another country or live in another part of North America? Would you be able to help them online to do the systemic work? So I guess the individual systemic work.
Yes, yes. The beauty of this online world now is that we can work individually and together
Mhm.
uh, with someone in another country. We can also, so as individual sessions, we can do that. We can also have someone come in as a surrogate for you. So if you are asking for an intention to heal
Mhm.
something, but you are bedridden or unable to attend or live way across the country, what we can do is actually have someone stand in as your surrogate, and
Yeah.
then the work could happen in a group situation as
Yeah.
well.
Beautiful. I didn't know that we
Yeah,
could do that. I like that
yeah, yeah.
because then you're also getting that group energy, which is so beautiful. It just it takes that and actually with the group energy just amplifies it. It moves, it just increases. I feel the power of the healing and of the work that you do. Yeah.
Yes, agreed. I do know and understand and experience the magic of doing it with individuals. My love is to work with groups. Yeah, yeah. But either way, the healing happens, and that's what I love and appreciate.
So you have traveled as well outside of Canada with this?
Yes. Yep, I'll go anywhere. I'm a traveler. My name's Wanda. It means wanderer. I'm in.
Well, for those, if you're interested, check out Wanda's website, www.walkingsoulwisdom.com. It's scrolling across the bottom of the screen. Um, all I can say is from working with Wanda that she is such a powerhouse. She is an amazing, amazing healer, psychic, intuitive. Um, I come away from any work that I do with her feeling more empowered and stronger and more aware. So, thank you very much, Wanda, for being with us here today, for sharing your work as a systemic constellation therapist. And I really encourage, if this has resonated with you, I strongly encourage you to get in touch with her because it is beautiful work, beautiful, beautiful work. So, thank you, Wanda.
Thank you so much, Becky. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
So next week we have Corral Mel with Key Lifestyle Solutions will be joining us, and again at 1:30 next Thursday. If you are interested in shamanic Reiki sessions, I am doing online as well as in person, and you can reach me through Waves of Key, KI, Waves of Key at gmail.com, or you could call me at the phone number on the bottom. You could also visit my website, www.wavesofkey.com. So the ways to reach me are going across the bottom of the screen, and I look forward to hearing from you and to seeing you again next week. Thank you.